Hello, this is Ms. DB. In this video, we are going to solve equations where we have to use the distributive property first. So this is going to be some examples from your worksheet, but before we do that, I just want to remind you about what the distributive property is. The distributive property is when you have a number outside of the parentheses, and then some stuff inside, like a sum or a difference inside the parentheses. To solve problems using the distributive property, you need to multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses times each term on the inside of the parentheses. So in this example, we would take 3 times x, and then we would put a plus sign because there's a sum inside the parentheses, and then we would multiply 3 times the 4, which is in the parentheses. And when we do that, we would get 3 times x we write as just 3x, the number next to the variable, and 3 times 4 is 12. So 3 times parentheses x plus 4 is equal to 3x plus 12. So we are going to use that technique on these problems on your worksheet. So there's an example here with a similar one to like what we just did. We're going to use the distributive property here, and then it'll be equal to something. So in this problem, we have to use the distributive property to multiply 2 times parentheses 5x minus 3, and that would give us 2 times 5x minus 2 times 3, and it's equal to 14 because that's what the equation said. And 2 times 5x is 10x, and 2 times 3 is 6. This time it's a minus sign because it was a minus sign in the parentheses. So now we have 10x minus 6 equals 14, which is a two-step equation. So we solved this the same as we did earlier in this unit. We would undo the minus 6 by adding 6 to both sides, which leaves us with 10x is equal to 14 plus 6 is 20. So now we have 10x equals 20, and then we divide both sides by 10 and get our answer of x equals 2. Here's another example. You can look through this one as well. So on your worksheet, you are going to use the distributive property to solve these problems. Let's look at number 1. In number 1, we have 4 times parentheses y minus 8 is equal to 8. So the first step is to do the distributive property by taking the 4 on the outside and multiplying it by each term on the inside of the parentheses. So we have 4 times y, and then there's a minus sign in the parentheses, so we keep that. And then we do 4 times 8. And this will be equal to 8, which is what the right side of the equation says. So 4 times y, we can write that as just 4y. Don't need the times sign when you have that. 4 times 8 is 32. So now we have a two-step equation, and we're ready to solve this the same way that we would solve any two-step equation. We will start by undoing the minus 32. I'll just write this in with my pen. So we would write plus 32 on both sides. So if you're following along with me, you should be writing these steps on your paper. And that leaves us with 4y. Minus 32 plus 32 is 0. So it's equal to 8 plus 32. 8 plus 32 is 40. So we have 4 times y equals 40. If you can figure that out in your head, you can write what y is equal to. If you're not sure, then the way to solve this with inverse operations is to say the opposite of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. So we divide both sides by 4, and 40 divided by 4 is equal to 10. So we get our solution. All right, let's look at another problem. Let's look at number 3. Now in number 3, the distributive property is on the right side, but we are still going to solve the same way. It's just that we are going to rewrite the 24 equals to start with, and then we'll do the distributive property on the right side. So we have to take 3 times m, and then 3 times 4. There's going to be a plus sign because there's a plus sign in the parentheses, and then we write our 3 times 4. So the second line that I'm writing is just simplifying the distributive property that I just did. 3 times m can be written as 3m. 3 times 4 is equal to 12. So I just simplified that. Then to finish this problem, we are going to solve for the variable. We need to, here's the variable m, we need to undo the plus 12 by subtracting 12 from both sides of the equal sign. 24 minus 12 is 12. Equal sign, we're lining up our equal sign, equals 3 times m, or 3m. And we solve this by inverse operation. Says that if you have 3 times m, you can solve by dividing by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. On the right side, 3m divided by 3 is just m. So we get our solution of 4 equals m. And we'll look at 1 or 2 more problems. Number 6 has a couple steps in it that we'll have to solve. First of all, we will do the distributive property, which is right here, and then we'll see if we have any like terms to add. So the distributive property is that you would take 5, the number on the outside, times each term on the inside of the parentheses. So 5 times 1, this time it's a minus in the parentheses, so we write a minus, and then 5 times 2w. Now we still have to write the rest of the equation after that, so we write plus 8w equals 15. Now we simplify the part that we just did with the distributive property. So 5 times 1 is 5. There's our minus sign. 5 times 2w, we multiply the 5 and 2 together and then just write the w after it. So 5 minus 10w plus 8w equals 15. Now we're going to look for like terms. When you look for like terms in an equation, the sign in front of each term is a part of it. So we really have, these are our like terms that I put in this purple box. Negative 10w plus 8w. So when we have negative 10w plus 8w, we need to know what is negative 10 plus 8. So you can check on a calculator or think about the weather outside. If it's negative 10 degrees and then it goes up 8 more, it's still going to be negative, just not as cold. It's negative 2. So that means negative 10w plus 8w is equal to negative 2w. So when we go back over here to our equation, the 5 is still there, and then we would write negative, that's a little low, negative 10w, or that becomes a minus 2w. Like that, 5 minus 2w is equal to 15. Now we're trying to solve for w, the variable, and we have it being multiplied by a negative 2, and we have this 5 added to this whole problem, the whole term. So I need to get rid of the 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. If I had added 5, I would just increase that number to 10, so that wouldn't help me simplify and find the variable. So 5 minus 5 is 0. I still have the minus 2w left. 15 minus 5 is 10. And now we're ready to do our last step, which is to undo multiplying. We multiplied by a negative 2, so I need to undo that. 10 divided by negative 2, that's a negative 5. So our final answer then is w equals negative 5. So do be sure to show your work on these problems. There is some steps that you need to show in order to get these correct and to get all your points. For the last one today, we're going to do number 12. It says that 17 is equal to 3 parentheses p minus 5 plus 8. So we start by writing down what we have on the left side and our equal sign. And then we're going to do the distributive property. We're going to multiply 3 times p, there's a minus sign in the parentheses, and then 3 times 5. And then we just rewrite the plus 8 at the back. Now we simplify. 3 times p is the same as 3p. 3 times 5 is 15, and then we have a plus 8. There's no other like terms with the p term, so we just write 3p. And then we need to figure out what is a minus 15 or a negative 15 plus 8. If you're not sure, check it on your calculator. You should get minus or a negative 7, which then is a minus 7 we write down. You could write plus negative 7, but it's easier to solve equations when you just write it in as few signs as possible. So 17 equals 3p minus 7. Next, I need to undo the minus 7, so I will add 7 to both sides. 17 plus 7 is 24. I only have the 3p left. And all I have to do now is solve for p. So I have 24 equals 3 times p, and the last step would be to undo multiplying by 3, which means you would divide by 3. So do that last step and find out what do you get when you take 24 divided by 3, what will p be equal to? Let me know if you have any questions on the other problems on this worksheet, and have a great day.